All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. It is your favorite host or co-host, host-ish, Jackson. It's me. I'm the good Jackson, not the bad Jackson, as we saw on Dapper's channel just a couple of days ago. And joining me, as always, is my host and co-host, Peter from Gonna Go For It.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
And well, I'm doing okay. It's been an all right day. Not particularly productive. Well, no, that's not entirely true. It's been decently productive today. So yeah, it's been fine.
Hey.
Um, and then we also have one of my editors, Neslig. Welcome, welcome.
Uh, Hello, good to be back. And it has been recently fall has just begun, so getting ready for Halloween and Thanksgiving, and I hope we all enjoy our season.
Oh.
Is it
Oh.
your favorite season? Like, what's your favorite season?
I think I think
Well,
I
in
think
Louisiana, we have hot and cold, and those are our seasons.
I think Brian Stevens is somewhere near me because he says hello from Wind and Rain Central. That
That or
was here
Florida.
just about half an hour ago.
Oh. Well, in Florida, they're getting hit with a hurricane, as PZ points out. Yeah, we in Louisiana, of course, I'm in Shreveport, so I'm in the like northwestern corner of the state. We're fine up here. I actually haven't even looked at. Let's see, hurricane tracker. I haven't even looked at what the path is. So I'm curious. I
Uh,
know it's about to
well,
hit
I'm
Florida.
I'm pretty sure the current president has it messed up with the path with a sharpie this time.
Hurricane tracker. Oh,
Yeah, that worked so well last time.
let's see. What are we? This is taking
It took
forever
a
to
few
load.
seconds to get it to get it through.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no.
he's not. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to nuke this one, I guess. So, yeah. My goodness, this is
Ah,
taking forever to load.
I
I
mean,
don't.
in all fairness, we are to blame. And I still find that
Are we?
hilarious because I'm an atheist, and because I'm an atheist, America is hit with hurricanes and stuff.
Oh, here it
I
is.
mean,
Okay, so it's gonna hit the panhandle of Florida, is what it looks like. So it's gonna hit the panhandle and then go up into Georgia predominantly. That looks like the path. Okay, so yeah, nowhere near me. Pretty far away from me. So
Brian Stevens says he's prepped. It's hitting Tallahassee.
yeah, looks like it. Yeah, that sucks. Sorry to hear that. Well, I hope that you do
Stay
okay
safe.
and that you guys do well.
PC says God has poor aim. Yeah.
Was he aiming for me or for you?
I
I don't know.
mean,
Who was he aiming for?
if you read the
Maybe he
Bible,
has
you
really good
you
aim.
already knew because everything he plans in the Bible goes wrong. So yeah, his aim be that
Well,
well.
after he throws the hurricane, he's gonna say that he regretted doing it. So
I mean, it can't come from God, Jackson, because what did he say when he ended the flood and he put up the rainbow? He was never gonna pester the humans with water anymore. It would be fire next time. Who's
oh,
who's sending all this rain that we're having?
let's see. There we go. Well, he meant just not to the deserts in the Middle East, except for Pakistan a couple years ago, which got flooded. Aside from them.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Anyway, so let's see. So let's see. Who do we have? We got Nan, Triceratops, Brian Stevens, PZ Myers, Savage, Bivalve, Alpinist, Cobra. The power only went out for 2 blips. Yeah. Well, I hope you guys don't lose power. We had a crazy storm. Was that last year? I think it was. Was that last year? We had like an insane windstorm in the middle of the night here in Shreveport, and it took out power for some people for weeks. Like you go to everyone was like, I was in bed. It hit at like, yeah, sometime just in the middle. And I was fortunate because my area
Was it
didn't
like a
lose.
was it like a supercell storm or?
I don't know. It just was an insane windstorm. Like took branches, it knocked down trees, took branches off. Like multiple trees fell in my neighborhood. That never happens. Or my former neighborhood. It just like caused immense havoc, and like that was it. It was just that one bit. It was pretty crazy. I think it was like last July.
We just get
Um,
rain. And
we got Katina, Peck Bays, and Smitty. Do what?
I said we just get rain. We had last month we had 2 light showers in which about a month's worth of water came down in, I guess, 2 hours. We had that twice in 1 month. So
fun times.
yes, I
Fun,
think I need to learn how to swim. It's going to be important one of these days.
I also have been. I also have something to tell you. I have unfortunately been traumatized on the internet lately.
Okay, what by this time?
I have seen something so horrific. It's indescribable. I've seen Charlie
attempt to
Kirk
describe it anyway.
smile. I've seen Charlie Kirk smile.
Oh, have you seen the Meat Canyon cartoon of that?
Yeah.
It actually looks slightly
It's
less scary than the real
horrifying.
thing, you know?
Now, I don't know. I don't know what's more horrifying, like either of those pictures, or the fact that the drawing is not very much exaggerated compared to the real thing. Like it's barely exaggerated. The drawing that Meat Canyon did. Oh, it haunts my dreams. It haunts my nightmares.
It is pretty scary. It's a little funny to me that so the bit that he was doing was for Jubilee, and they pretty much every year it seems like they do something like that where they have like, you know, a team of conservatives versus a team of liberals, or in this case it was one adult conservative versus a bunch of liberals. And then for the opposite side, it was one like 17-year-old liberal versus a bunch of adults. And he apparently schooled everyone. I haven't watched.
Yeah, I've seen clips of that. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's the fact that they, on one hand, the conservatives, they were like, okay, we have to find an adult to do this. But then for the liberal, they're like, let's just throw a 17-year-old kid in there. It's fine. Like what? But he did well apparently. So you know. All right. Oh hey, and my Adkisson. Hello. Welcome.
And did you hear the good news, Jackson? I mean, I rolled off.
Have I heard the good news?
Yes, I rolled off the couch laughing. The guy whose show you were on, TTOR.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his co-host Brett Keane got kicked off of Truth Social for sharing pro-Trump memes. I'm not kidding.
Wait, doesn't Trump own
Yes.
Truth Social?
Yes.
How would he get kicked off of Truth Social for that?
I mean, I don't know, but if you're pro-Trump and you still get suspended by one of Trump's social media scenes, I mean, you have to be bad, right? There's something wrong with you. If even Trump doesn't like you, when you're supporting him, I thought it was hilarious.
That is pretty bananas.
Yeah.
I mean, Truth Social is a nightmare plane. That's why I don't have an account on it. So even Trump didn't want to be associated with Brett Keane. Very true, Smitty. Very true. I haven't heard anything from TTOR. I hope at some point he reaches out so we can do a show. I know he said he was busy, but I hope to have him on so I could talk to him here, because I've got a lot of stuff I'd like to ask him about. Let's see if he's followed up with any of the things we discussed in our show. But we'll see. I actually, for the first time in a while, I had a creationist respond to me on Twitter and try to start an argument with me. And I really don't argue with creationists on Twitter that much anymore, just because I think it's kind of a waste of time and I have a lot of things to do. But I chatted with him for a little bit, and he just kind of had some of his basic creationist nonsense rhetoric. For instance, and I know he was an SFT fan, for instance, because one of the claims he made is that endogenous retroviruses actually came from humans instead
Of
of
course they
the
did.
other way around.
Yes.
Which is kind of insane, you know. But whatever, that's what they say over it.
It sounds to me like something the germ theory deniers are saying. Like, oh, no, the disease does not cause, oh, the pathogen does not cause the disease causes the pathogen. Like, it's
Right.
something. Yeah.
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 The Standing for Truth wrote a book. I think it was a couple years ago now.
With
in which-
hyperlinks.
Right, with
Filled
hyperlinks.
with hyperlinks.
Well, in this book, he tried to argue that endogenous retroviruses aren't actually evidence for evolution, while avoiding Dan Stern Cardinal the whole time. And he finally released this book, and Dan went through it and picked it apart and everything. Over at Creation Myths, for anyone who's not aware, that's the channel Creation Myths, friend of the channel. And in this book, Donnie came to the conclusion that endogenous retroviruses must have come from organisms rather than invading organisms, which is kind of wild, kind of a wild claim, because endogenous retroviruses in our genome are easily identifiable by having a particular set of characteristics, things that we don't need as mammals. Like, they have these genes called GAG, POL, and ENV. We don't need those for anything. Like, we just don't. So to begin, there's no function for them.
No.
But also, we can be pretty sure that they aren't doing anything in our genome because we can do transcriptomic analyses. So we can see what is the rate of these genetic regions being undergoing transcription. And it turns out it's very, very, very low, basically indistinguishable from noise. They're just spurious transcripts. They don't really do anything. But
of course, there are like a couple of notable exceptions. Like, are very few. Like, of course, most are, like, as you say, most of them are just like just there, not expressed or anything. They're like just a dead virus, basically, a dead virus stuck in the genome. But there is like one noted. My favorite example is the syncytin gene, which is a co-opted version of, I believe, it's the NV gene, the ENV gene.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. It's basically the ENV stands for the envelope of the virus. And the envelope of the virus has like these receptors, which it uses to bind onto host cells and invade host cells. Basically, these receptors causes the envelope of the virus and the cell membrane of the host to fuse. And basically, when we adopted that, or we our mammal ancestors, we exploited that mechanism to make the placenta fuse with the uterus. Basically, it causes the same type of thing. It causes cell-to-cell fusion, as opposed to virus envelope and cell fusion. Yeah, it's very, very.
And here's another one that I just put in the side chat. There's was it ARG/ARC 3.1, and that one is involved in us forming memories. Interestingly enough, if you don't have, or if there's a knockout for what's it, ARG/ARC 3.1, or I might have that backwards. If you have this knocked out, you basically can't form long-term memories, which is kind of whack that an endogenous retrovirus is involved in our memory formation. So that's kind of crazy.
Is this unique to humans, or is it just also like widespread in like mammals?
It's in tetrapods.
Tetrapods, all right.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've heard about that. Yeah, I think I've heard about that before. Yeah. It's a transposon, right? Like a
yes.
It was a transposon. Yeah.
Neil Shubin talks about it in his third book, Some Assembly Required. That's where I first learned about it. It was in that book, which is a really cool book. Highly recommend. So yeah. So.
And you mentioned Dan Stern Cardinal. He released a video yesterday. Apparently, Nathaniel Jensen is lying. Isn't that shocking?
Oh yeah, the whole what was it called? The like God's not dead is true. Like every professor is like that, which is just not true, and he knows it's not true. I mean, he went to college. He went to a secular college. It was like Harvard or Yale. It was one of those. But he went to a secular college, so he knows that the professors there are not like Kevin Sorbo from God's Not Dead. So it's just kind of silly.
Yeah,
He's just lying.
persecution complex has to have a narrative, as always.
Of course, yeah. They love their persecution porn. That's their favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, okay. I don't really have any news related stuff. I mean, other than I'm working on chapter 2 of The Rocks Were There, Volume 2. I'm editing it. So RJ sent it to me. I'm editing chapter 2. I kicked chapter 3 over to him. He edited it and added his stuff, and so I'm just going to edit it one more time, and then chapter 3 will be done. So we'll be going very quickly through the first 3 chapters, and then so we're making some pretty good progress on the book. So
And
yeah.
RJ had his birthday this week.
Yeah.
Yes, 72. Still trying to catch up with him, but it's not working. Every single time I gain a year on him, he has another birthday and gets older.
Yeah, it does tend to be like that.
Yeah.
Where is he? There he is. Oh well. Oh shoot! I didn't even realize that was his. I didn't realize that was his birthday. Huh? Did I not write that on my calendar?
A couple of days ago. One of the things why I still have a Facebook page, it will remind me of people having...
Yeah, it is useful for that.
Yes.
Huh. Well, let's see. I guess I don't know if I've told you guys as a group, or I'm pretty sure I've told you, Peter. But I don't think I've told everyone out there in the live chat. But on November 9th, if I have, then forgive me. November 9th, I'll be getting married. So yay! Woo!
That was a very enthusiastic woo.
Woo! Yeah.
The moment he said he was getting married, he froze.
Yeah. He froze. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's related, but it triggered.
Very poetic.
So yep. So we'll be getting married on November 9th. So yeah.
Crushing the dreams of several female viewers by getting married.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure. So yeah. That's the news for me, really. Not really a whole lot going on. Same old. Like I got to
very brief intro
into do what?
That's a very brief intro.
Yeah.
Oh, look. It's Otangelo, who doesn't want to talk to me anymore, but keeps talking to me. Sea-wind now, Otangelo?
Oh, speaking of news, Otangelo got hacked.
He got hacked?
Apparently. Yeah, his email got hacked because I saw that email like 2 or 3 times today, so I don't care. Sorry that happened. I guess don't use your business email for porn subscriptions, and you won't get hacked. I guess. So Psychart. Hello, welcome, Sai.
Hey, Sai.
I guess the next video will be the fruit fly's tale, in which we'll talk about the evolution of Hox genes. I am excited for that. I do love talking about the evolution of Hox genes, so we'll go into we'll talk about the evolution of arthropods viewed through the light of Hox genes. That'll be cool. I'll get to use Endless Form's Most Beautiful for that. So have you guys, Nestle, have you read Endless Form's Most Beautiful? It's really good.
I have the book, but I have not read it yet. I think I've read like just a few pages just to get the feel of what it's like, and I think I do like it what I've seen from the few pages, but I haven't gotten around to fully read it completely. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, Smitty says, what denomination church? And that would be Catholicism, the Catholic Church. So, because Camilla's Catholic. So, but yeah, it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. I enjoy it. He's a very good writer. Of course, I've read also Sean Carroll's book, The Serengeti Rules, which was pretty good. I feel like I've read something else by him, but I can't remember it offhand. Oh, you've used it in your classes?
It's the author of this book is Sean B. Carroll, not the Sean Carroll from physics.
Right. And then there's another
different person.
Isn't there another Sean Carroll? I think there was a paleontologist, Sean Carroll, too.
Yes, there are two with the name, but I forgot what the other one was.
I think the other one was a paleontologist. So it's like a developmental biologist, a paleontologist, and then the physicist, I think.
It would be very funny to get them into a room with each other and say like, Sean, do you know this? Like, who are you talking to? To
Sean?
Me, to him.
Sean. I'm talking to Sean Carroll. Which one?
Yeah. It will be literally the Spider-Man meme, like pointing at pointing at each other.
Yep.
They have to do that. They have to do that at one point. I will.
PZ Myers says there's another developmental biologist, Sean Carroll, too.
Yeah. Huh. Well, maybe, or I thought it was a paleontologist. Anyway, doesn't matter. Point is, there's a bunch of Sean Carrolls, far too many Sean Carrolls in science.
We have Project Steve. We should start Project Sean Carroll. See what happens.
We really should. We'll still have more Sean Carroll signatures than people who signed the Descent from Darwinism. So, but yeah, it's really good books. So yeah. So the book I just finished What Bugged the Dinosaurs by George Pointer Jr. George Pointer Jr. is for goodness sakes.
Froze again.
Good Lord. George Pointer Jr. is an amber specialist, so he does basically all of his, every time any paper you look up by him, and I think also his wife, is like amber stuff. They look at arthropods and fungi and nematodes and stuff in amber. And so he wrote a book in which he just went through like all of these different amber fossils. It was a really cool book. He wrote it back in 2008. I just finished that recently. And I just started Merchants of Doubt, which is also just blowing my mind right now. I don't know if you guys have read Merchants of Doubt.
You also mentioned that the last time, like last week, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the book starts out about talking about the tobacco industry, how they paid some scientists to lie about the smoking, the connection between smoking and cancer. And the cool thing was, so I thought the book was largely about that, and then later the climate change industry. But it turns out it actually follows those scientists as they hop from like thing to thing. So they went from defending the tobacco industry first, and then as that kind of fizzled out because they lost a bunch of cases and they had to put labels on cigarettes and everything, they jumped straight from that to like joining or doing like a foreign policy for the Reagan administration, because of course they did, and trying to convince Reagan to like build up our nuclear arsenal, not like slow down our production of nuclear weapons and stuff and ICBMs and all that. And so it's really fascinating how they just kind of keep the book does a very good job of keeping the narrative of
that's like
some kind of weird noise.
You're crackling again.
Oh, you wrote a review of Merchants of Doubt? Interesting.
Did it stop for me?
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yes,
stopped again.
yes, it did.
So it's a really interesting book. I'm really enjoying it. I did not know that was so. I was aware of the tobacco industry paying off some scientists, but one thing I was not aware of is that the tobacco industry faced RICO charges, which is, for anyone who's not aware, that's racketeering, which is basically having or committing like fraudulent business endeavors. Because it turns out you can't pay people to just lie for you indefinitely. Eventually, people will wise up to the fact that you are lying to them, and then you end up, being litigated, and so not great. How can you tap into that grift? No, no, PZ, no, we don't want to tap into the grift unless they're paying us really well. Then I might change my mind. So anyway,
You did miss a question, Jackson. I think
what I miss?
I want to know that too. So when you said that Otangelo was hacked, Maya Atkinson said, when trolls get hacked, do the hackers send out positive affirmations?
Where are we looking? When the hackers get hacked, what?
When the trolls get hacked, I screwed it up. When the trolls get hacked, do the hackers send out positive affirmations instead of trolling people?
Do they? I don't know.
I have to say, I mean, Otangelo naming one of his socks Seawind isn't a bad name choice for a blowhard like Otangelo.
That's pretty funny. Oh, Psy. So Psy was in the middle of the tobacco wars. That's interesting. That's really neat. Of course, I'm looking at all the. I really appreciate the gift of hindsight. That the hindsight of all of these, of not just the tobacco industry, but also like the asbestos industry, and well, now the fossil fuel industries, trying to downplay climate change, as well as the company that did that like dumped like waste at Love Canal, which resulted in a bunch of people getting sick. Like the beauty, and so all those things were talked about in The War on Science by Sean Otto, which, if anyone has not read that book, The War on Science, Sean Otto, super good book. Also, Merchants. Let me put that, Merchants of Doubt, Oreskes and Conway, right? I think. The beauty of having hindsight for all these things is that you can see how the exact same playbook has been used in every situation. You have an industry that has a particular product, and then the studies start coming out by independent scientists saying, hey, it seems like these are causing harm to regular people. And then the company, the industry, rather than saying, oh shoot, looks like you're right, they say, no, they aren't, that's not real. And then they double down, and then they fight with the experts in the relevant fields for years, perhaps decades, and then only decades later it's not always decades later, sometimes it takes years, only years, does the actual the information come out where like the industry gets investigated by the DOJ or something, and then they they lose their case inevitably. So it's fascinating to see that this sort of stuff has happened over and over and over again. But also, it's sad that we keep falling prey to the exact same tactics over and over. So it's sad that like people who are older, who are older than me, who have been around for a little while, who may be aware of everything that happened with the tobacco industry shenanigans, didn't say, hey, maybe we should question the fossil fuel industry's position on climate change. Maybe it seems like they're arguing for the thing that's obviously in their favor. No, it's all a conspiracy meant to bring them down, right? So
speaking of conspiracies, I was thinking, if you order the book The War on Science now, you can still finish reading it before the war on Christmas starts.
My firm opinion on the war on Christmas is the war on Christmas cannot end until Christmas ends its illegal occupation of November. That's my opinion.
November. So November.
When
Two
Christmas
weeks.
ends,
2 weeks ago,
it's
one of the stores near me put up its entire Christmas department.
oh yeah, Hobby Lobby is doing that
2
right
weeks
now.
ago.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's not talk about November. Let's get September and October first. I mean,
we got to push the Christmas warriors back. Osai says the stories I could tell. I would love to hear that. Honestly, I think that would be fascinating to hear that. That'd be really cool. All right. Well, we ready to jump right into the video?
yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's do
We
it.
only have a little over an hour to finish. Buckle up.
Including well-known and what did Gideon say, Rob? Many theologians have told me in private that they agree with young Earth creation, but can't publicly endorse it for that reason. Yeah, it's sad. I want to get the conversation going, and I know we're a small show, but I think the people that listen to us should be exposed to hearing you're not crazy for even looking into these things, and don't let people that think the other way bully you into thinking you're an idiot for.
Right. Well, hold on, pause for a moment. Well, okay. No one's an idiot for doing the research. No one's an idiot for looking into young Earth creationism. Like, you're allowed to look into anything you want to. The issue becomes when you are not just looking into like young Earth creationism, for instance, the issue becomes when you buy the claims of young Earth creationism, when you think, oh, yeah, no, accelerated nuclear decay is fine. That could just totally happen and not boil the observable universe. Like, no, that's fine. No, that's where the problem is. Although I don't think you should call these people an idiot per se.
I was going to say the exact same thing, and you said it so much nicer than I would have.
Oh, okay.
So thank you for beating me to it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stole your.
No, it's just throwing around the term idiot. I don't think that's productive.
Yeah, it's
either
not
way.
going to be productive. It's just if you explain to them what the evidence actually is, or point them in the direction of resources they can use to understand the evidence against young Earth creationism, for instance. Okay, well then you've done your job. If they, still come back with, well, it's all a conspiracy because of, I don't know, the Jews or something, then okay, well, there's not really a whole lot left you can do in that sort of in that case. So, all right, we can keep going.
Stuff. To get back to evolution, they're constantly talking about the fossil record, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll show you a fossil record where it looks like there's this obvious progression through, well, it starts like this and then it evolves into this, and they'll show you these charts. And when I was listening to your talks today, because I listened to about 5 hours of Pamela Acker today, and I was riveted through all of it. I'm not kidding. Some of the audio is terrible on them, but yes, it was just amazing to me to see how you
she has the same problems as Charles Jackson.
Some of those charts are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so back when I was an evolutionist and I saw the pictures in the book that that the humans are up here and the single-celled organisms are down here, right? I thought that if you dug straight through the floor, you would hit all of those layers that are represented in that image. And there's only about 5% of the places in the world where you can. So 95% of places in the world are missing millions of years of dirt. And nobody really can explain why.
Wait, whoa. Wait. Is she saying no one knows what erosion is? Is that her claim? Like, okay, for what she's talking about is, first of all, this is a misdirection. This has nothing to do with the claim itself. What he asked, like,
it's also it's a different topic altogether. Like she just pivoted without.
He asked about the transitions that the evolutionists show, and her response was to jump to like the few places where you can see like a large portion, an anomalously large portion of the geological column. What you have to remember is if you're looking at the whole column, what are you standing on, right? Because these sections would have to be or there's erosion that's allowing you to look at all these sections. So like, what are you standing on if you can see the entire thing? But of course, for most sections, there's not that. There's only a piece. And then, of course, I would go to like index fossils, for instance, and you have biostratigraphy, which includes index fossils. You have chronostratigraphy, so you can actually date the rock layers. You can do magnetostratigraphy, so you can line up the magnetic the like stripes of magnetic directions in the rock layers, and like all these different methods point to the same conclusion, which is that the Earth is really old and that you can align these rocks in a particular way. There is an actual geological column. It's not just someone made it up, right? You have these different things pointing to the same conclusion. That's why, for instance, whenever I get into a talk with creationists, and if the conversation does happen to turn to fossils, I like to talk about index fossils, because this is something that flood geology just categorically cannot account for. Also, but again, and I know I cut her off, but what she went to in response to him talking about transitional fossils was to say that I'm not sure if she's saying the geological column doesn't exist, because again, I did cut her off. Savage bivalve alpinist cobra for $1.99. This man is a masochist if he can stand 5 hours. Yeah, true. Nestle, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's just like the way she just said how nobody can explain this. Like, yeah, again, she is not familiar with erosion. Like I
right. I know she's a biologist, but like even biologists are familiar with erosion, right?
Yeah. So. It's just like the Earth has a finite amount of materials. Of course, it still receives a bit of materials from space, but not a whole lot. But still, there are different parts of the world are experiencing erosion, and different parts are experiencing deposition. And of course, over geological time, some parts have like some parts at certain times have experienced erosion at some point, and at different points in time they've experienced deposition. So that's why different places have different ages in the rock formations. Like you can also see, I think you have like these paleo maps or maybe geological maps with differently colored regions, and those denote from which age these rock layers are exposed. I think like Darwin drew. I believe Darwin was like one of the first who like made such a drawing of like coloring places based on the age of the rock that were exposed at the surface. I think so.
You might be right. I know that by the time Darwin was writing, you had Lyell, because Darwin loved his book Principles of Geology. You had earlier than him in the late 1700s, you had like James Hutton and guys like that who were figuring out the age of, or well, not so much the age, the stratigraphy of the different layers in Europe, which is like most of the names for like the big common names for the larger slices of time are often based on places in Europe, like the Devonian, the Jurassic, I think the Permian. So yeah, these are all named for European places. So,
well, and it could still get worse, Jackson, because if you talk to Kent Hovind or one of his Hovindites, they will tell you that all of the material was created 6,000 years ago, so they're all the same age. And even then, it gets worse because we had Cypher on the channel. He's talked to a creationist who told him that the bottom layers are the youngest.
Right.
Not even kidding.
Which is fascinating. That is an interesting concept. I'm sure when he throws clothes on his floor, and you
want to know why they are the youngest?
Under the older clothes.
Yeah, you want to know why they are the youngest? Because they were formed first. Not kidding. He said it several times. People pointed out what he was saying, and he stuck to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's certainly something.
Lyellian framework where everything's just laid down gradually over eons of time, right? And the other thing that they can't explain are fossils that show up where they don't belong. And there's a long history of us discovering, fossils of more and more complex animals deeper and deeper in the fossil record. We were just talking about this a little bit, looking through telescopes, right? The further out in space you look, you should expect to see things, if the universe is 13 billion years old, you should expect something 13 billion light years away to look like nothing or dust.
So we were talking in the green room. So
wait, the further you look out into space, this was actually, wasn't that just a thing that I hold on a second. Was it the James Webb, or what was the there was a group of stars that were predicted based on like if the Big Bang model were true, then we should see like stars of a particular like size or whatever, or nebula or whatever it was. I don't remember. I'm not a space guy, but it was like this was a particular structure in space that we should expect to see if the universe, is or the evolution of the universe follows the Big Bang model, and like it was confirmed based on the most recent like telescope images. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Does anybody know recently?
Yeah, that was a recent thing that happened. Also, bivalve alpinist Cobra for $1.99 hashtag not how gravity works, and then my unfinished journey for $6.66. Hail Nero, good Jackson crew, and down with pseudoscience. True. What was it? Telescope. Confirms.
But also she said that if you were to look into this universe like 13.8 billion years or billion light years ahead of time, you would expect to see nothing but dust. 4 words: cosmic microwave background radiation. It's the glowing dust, basically, of the Big Bang. We see it.
What was it?
There.
Is this, hold on, is this it? This week, Nature is publishing confirmation that some galaxies we've imaged also date back to just 300 million years after the Big Bang. Critically, one of them is bright and relatively large, allowing us to infer that most of its light was coming from a halo of stars surrounding its core, rather than originating in the same area as the central black hole. The finding implies that it formed through a continuing burst of star formation that started just 200 million years after the Big Bang. Oh, where was it? I feel like I was just reading something about it just the other day. Does anyone? Well, also, I mean, if you look far enough, you have like the last scattering surface, don't you? Which is like as far as we can see, because
yes,
that's, you can't see beyond that because like that's the remnant of the Big Bang, right?
Yeah, it's a microwave background radiation, right? Like just back before like again some background. At one point, the universe was hot and dense enough such that everything was a plasma right. phase. Right. So basically, in the plasma phase, the atoms and the electrons are no longer bound to nuclei of atoms. So it's the plasma phase. And if the plasma phase, it's opaque. Light cannot travel through it in a straight line, so everything gets scattered. And I think that's what you're referring to, right? Like the light cannot go in a straight line through a plasma. But when the universe cooled down to a certain point, then you have recombination, it's called. So everything, the plasma phase condenses down into a normal gas phase. So everything becomes neutrally charged, and light is finally able to travel freely through the universe. And that is the light that we see. Of course, back then, the universe was still very hot and glowing, but not hot enough for a plasma, but still hot enough such as it had a orange-red hue. But over time, that light has like red shifted towards the microwave spectrum, and that's why we see it as a microwave background.
Yeah.
Or were you referring to something else?
No, that's not what I was thinking of.
Brian Stevens posted a link to a video about this, I think.
Becky did a vid on not so long ago. Okay, well, I found a NASA article, which I know NASA's run by the communist Jews or whatever, but let's see. It says, looking deep into the early universe with NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, astronomers have found something unprecedented, a galaxy with an odd light signature, which they attribute to its gas outshining its stars. Found approximately 1 billion years after the Big Bang, galaxy, whatever, may be a missing link phase of galactic evolution between the universe's first stars and familiar, well-established galaxies. This might be it. Because the idea is... Yeah, the research team suspects that the galaxy is in the midst of a brief phase of intense star formation inside a cloud of dense gas that is producing a large number of massive, hot stars. The gas cloud is being hit with so many photons of light that from the stars that it is shining extremely brightly. Yes, in addition to its novelty, nebular gas outshining stars is intriguing because it is something predicted in the environments of the universe's first generation of stars, which astronomers classify as population 3 stars. Yep. Okay, so basically this was a predicted. Here, I'll put the link in our side chat. There we go. So basically, based on the Big Bang model, there should be particular types of stars and galaxies from the early universe, and James Webb Telescope confirmed this. So, oh no, the Big Bang is dead, right? Okay, well, so okay, here we go. We know that the galaxy does not have population 3 stars because the Webb data shows too much chemical complexity. However, its stars are different than what we are familiar with. The exotic stars in this galaxy could be a guide for understanding how galaxies transitioned from primordial stars to the types of galaxies we already know. Yeah, okay. So the Big Bang model theory made a particular prediction about types of stars and galaxies we should see in the early universe, and it seems like, some of them have, or transitional states that we should expect if that prediction is true, have been found. Would you look at that? Big shock, I know. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Alex Markel said, Jackson, didn't you know that the Jews trademark control the Illuminati as well? They wanted to rebrand it, but nobody wanted to be part of an organization called the Jewluminati. Well, I know that a lot of people follow Trump, and those are called the illiterati. So
the illiterati. Yeah. I love one of my favorite insults has been Redneckistan. I love that one. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
For the Bible Belt, Redneckistan. Yeah.
Okay. And the leader of Redneckistan is Marmalade Mussolini.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of weird that the leader of Redneckistan is orange. Just throwing that out there.
Well, he's he's closest to red. He's the ultimate orange character.
Yeah, just don't look at his neck because you'll get traumatized if you look at that. Do it.
All right, we keep going.
Same goes for Kent Hovind's neck.
I didn't want to bring too much of like astrophysics in because that's not Pam's area.
Oh,
Peter,
it froze for me.
Oh, sorry. What I was muted. What does astrophysics have to do with fossils that seem to evolve into other species? Because that was a topic, right? That's what he said.
He asked about fossils. Yeah.
Yes.
And she went to stratigraphy and then jumped to the Big Bang. It's like, girl, answer the question.
I mean,
And even Anthony
I
is
think-
like,
I think she put the
please
goal-
stay on topic, please. Yeah, it's
She put the goalpost outside of the universe already with one question. That's a neat trick.
Right.
no, it's not his fault. Like it's just
You're right.
Pamela's
No,
fault.
no,
Like,
I'm
Anthony
saying-
is, like right now, Anthony is also complaining
Pamela
about
put the
it.
goalpost outside of the universe after one question.
Yeah, he's like, okay,
expertise.
well,
But I had asked her a couple of questions, and we were talking about how you see light years into the past. But I didn't want to pin you with something that actually is in your area of expertise. But that is what
That's
Pamela is
fair.
referencing. So,
But if you look at these images that are supposed to come from 13 billion light years away, you see
are we going to
fully
talk
formed
about the
galaxies,
transitional
and
fossils?
they can't explain that, and they can't explain why at the bottom of the fossil record you find vertebrates. So in the Cambrian layer, which is the
what?
Wait,
What?
She
The
thinks
bottom of the
she thinks
fossil.
the Cambrian is the bottom of the fossil record. Oh my goodness! Oh no! Oh my god!
there is no Precambrian apparently. Of course,
Nope.
there is actually no Precambrian because it is several periods before the Cambrian. It's not one thing, of course, but yeah,
So
so there's
for
several
reference,
several eons before the Precambrian.
the
before the
Cambrian
Cambrian.
to today is what 1/8 of the fossil record, isn't it?
Even about
About 1/8. If we
Roughly,
assume
yeah.
that life started about 4 billion years ago, and if we say that the Cambrian started 500 million years ago, which it didn't, but if we round down, if we're doing lots of rounding down, that's like 1/8 of the fossil record. And she's like, that's the whole thing. It's only the yeah. Alex Markle, Edie Acker. Am I a joke to you, Pam? Oh my god. Jeez. Yikes. Friggin' yikes.
the deepest layer where we actually find fossils. There's something called they call it the Cambrian explosion because there are over 100 different phyla present in that.
Wait.
that
I'm sorry.
layer.
Hold on.
So
Peter, can you rewind like 30 seconds? I have to. I'm sorry. Did she say there are over 100 phyla? Did I miss that? Hold on. Can you please rewind that? I'm so sorry.
I'll try.
I apologize.
Yeah, that
I'm
doesn't
terribly
work.
sorry.
This doesn't work well with a video this long. So let's see where we are.
out in space, you should expect to see
Okay,
things.
that's perfect.
You know, if the universe is 13 billion years old, you should expect something 13 billion light years away to look like nothing or dust.
Okay.
You know.
So we were talking
Right.
in the green room. So I didn't want to bring too much of like astrophysics in because that's not
Sure.
Pam's area of expertise. But I had asked her a couple of questions, and we were talking about how you see light years into the past. But I didn't want to pin you with something that actually is in your area of expertise. But that is what
That's
Pamela is
fair.
referencing. So,
But if you look at these images that are supposed to come from 13 billion light years away, you see fully formed galaxies, and they can't explain that, and they can't explain
don't.
why at the
That's
bottom
not a
of the
thing.
fossil record you find vertebrates. So in the Cambrian layer, which is the deepest layer where we actually find fossils, there's something called they call it the Cambrian explosion. Because there are over 100 different phyla present in that.
Okay,
in that
pause.
layer.
Over
So
100.
Over 100 different phyla. So
Okay.
there are like 30 to 36 phyla. That's
Animals, right? Yeah.
of like phyla of animals.
Yeah. Like,
Unless
I'm
she's-
pretty sure she's not referring to all phyla across all life. I'm pretty much she's not referring to that, but still over 100. No.
I just
This-
one question. If she's
yeah.
talking about the Cambrian explosion, what does she think exploded? If those are the
her
first
brain
fossils.
exploded.
Yeah, those are the 1st
Mhm.
fossils.
This is listen, there might not, the Cambrian might not be the bottom of the fossil record, but Pamela Acker is the bottom of the creationist barrel.
Yes.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And can I point out, Jackson? Can I point out real quick? And I want to highlight this: Savage Cobra, the Ediacaran vertebrate. Fuck it, this deserves a name change. I like that. I like that.
The Savage Cobra, the Ediacaran vertebrate. That's great. Vertebrate, Vertebrate. Yeah, that's the Ediacaran vertebrate. So she thinks the Cambrian is the bottom of the fossil record, as in that's the oldest layer we have, is what she means when she says that. She says that vertebrates show up at the bottom of the fossil record, i.e. the Cambrian. Now, in fairness, vertebrates do show up, or well, proto-vertebrates show up in the Cambrian stem vertebrates, and also crown vertebrates. You have some crown vertebrates in the Cambrian. Nothing with like really tough calcified bones, though. That's not till the Ordovician. She says galaxies are present 13 billion light years away, and also that, what was the other thing? That there are over 100 animal phyla. These are all Savage Cobra, the Ediacaran vertebrate, for $5. I am entirely unconvinced that Pam Acker possesses an area of expertise.
She like, if I'm not mistaken, like she was working in like a medical field or like vaccines or something like that.
Yeah, it was with like she said she has a master's, I believe. She said she has a master's, and that she was working with like cancer research and vaccines and stuff. Which, okay, so based on that, I'm assuming that her background is like cell biology. But good,
I think she's great. I think she's great at coming up with fiction. Might be her area of expertise.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
this is something I didn't expect. It's impressive how she continues to amaze me, after all these years of like hearing stuff from the creationists. This is new. This is new to me. Like as bad as Stephen Meyer is, he doesn't believe. He doesn't make this mistake.
At least Stephen Meyer acknowledges that there's an Ediacaran and a Cryogenian before the Cambrian. Like, there's literally. I don't know anyone else who thinks, because Andrew Snelling also is like the Precambrian rock is like pre-flood rock. So pretty much everybody at like AIG acknowledge, and like ICR and all these organizations, they all acknowledge that Precambrian rock exists. They just say it's like pre-flood rock or whatever. But like nobody's saying that the Cambrian is the bottom of the fossil record. That's so insane. Oh my god.
In all fairness, she would be a great help to geologists, because we just found out that what we thought we had the bottom of the barrel, but there seems to be multiple layers underneath it.
Yeah. Yikes. Oh, okay. We can keep going.
You think about a phylum, you might have flashbacks to a grade school class where you had to memorize kingdom phylum.
I wish you had flashbacks to grade school.
Right. But don't panic. It's not super complicated. So a species is one group of animals that, through the biological definition, can interbreed with each other. So,
yay!
Technically a Pomeranian and a Great Dane are the same species, even though they look very, very different.
Completely different, yeah.
And then you have a genus, which is slightly, oh, there we go. We have a diagram even. A slightly broader category. A phylum is the broadest category that you can get within a kingdom. So kingdom would be like Animalia. So all the animals belong in one kingdom. And a phylum would be all the different types of animals. So a jellyfish is going to be in a different phylum than you are, in a different phylum than a worm is, in a different phylum than I'm forgetting my phylums because I'm on.
That's like all the animals she knows.
But anyway,
like a tiger and a lion.
No, that's the genera actually.
But they're not the same species. So
they're not the same species.
So you could
so
crossbreed them, but then
are in
they
different
couldn't
phyla.
interbreed, right? I think that's
What's
how
that?
that works. So like if you had if a tiger and a lion, you call that a liger, but then that could not reproduce itself.
Yeah, so ligers are generally infertile. I think there may have been an instance of one that wasn't, but I don't really remember if that was
I don't know why I
one of the other species
like
of that. Yeah, it gets.
I mean, it's actually a fair point.
That's a fair. Yeah, there we go. So
different
so
phylums.
we have some different phyla. So sea urchins are in a phyla. Snails are in different phyla. Worms, there are 3 different phyla of worms because worms are apparently that much different from each other.
No, there are more than 3 phyla of
insects
worms.
Are a phyla, sponges, and then of course
insects
vertebrates.
are not a phylum.
There are about 30 different existent phyla now, and there were about 100 different phyla in the Cambrian explosion. So we didn't go from one organism to different organisms.
Pause for a moment.
100.
Like I think she's doing the basically she's treating every single stem group as a individual phyla that was like extinct, basically.
That's bananas. Oh, sorry. Ian Chen official for $7.99. Congrats on your upcoming wedding. I trust you know about the 3 rings of marriage: 1 engagement ring, 2 wedding ring, and lastly suffer ring. Ha. Well, thank you for the $7.99. I appreciate it. You might be right, Nestle, that it may be the case that she's treating different stem groups as different phyla, but the problem with that is all these terms are predicated on having like living members, right? So like a phyla, you have a stem, you can have a stem clade or a stem group, but the phylum is the common or includes the common ancestor of all the living members. It doesn't really, these terms just don't really.
It's like the taxonomic ranks of like Linnaeus, the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Like only species has a somewhat of a definition. Of course, it is also a bit fuzzy, even species. But all the other ones don't really have a definition, and it only makes sense when you apply them to, as you mentioned, you can only apply them to modern organism. And at the moment when you go across time backwards, the concepts break down because everything goes to one common ancestor, basically. Like for example, like if you trace back to use their example, like cats, lions, cats, and if you go back, you go back to the common ancestor with dogs and bears as well, and you reach a point where we see the meerkats, which has been traditionally been called a family, but of course
it's
now
paraphyletic.
The term, it's paraphyletic. Like these concepts begin to break down at that point. Like, when does a family cross over into the order Carnivora? Of course, it makes no sense. So that's why we have like adopted a cladistic approach recently. So the terms are being used less and less.
Right. That's why, like Dinosauria, as another example, is treated as a class, but it encompasses the class Aves. So obviously, Dinosauria can't be a class if Aves.
What's Dinosauria a class? I think it was an order.
Or an order. I'm sorry. It was an order.
It was an order within the class Reptilia, and now it includes the class or a class Reptilia, and then included it as the order Dinosauria, and within that we have class birds.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was.
Again, it makes. I don't fault you because the whole name system is exactly so a much better example. It just doesn't make much sense when you apply them to extinct organisms like that.
You can't have a class of birds within an order of reptiles, right? Quote quote. So none of it makes any sense. Yeah, especially also like crocodiles are more closely related to birds than they are to lizards. So like, it just none of these schemes have to be applied in a monophyletic fashion, or else they don't make any sense. Savage Cobra, the Ediacaran was it the Ediacaran vert for $4.99. If we keep this family talk up, Vin Diesel is going to show up. He is all about family. I've only seen one of those movies. I didn't think it was very good. Sorry. Okay, anyway, we can keep going.
Phyla to 30 phyla.
Yeah.
So the tree of life is really more like a Christmas tree, which is what we would expect from a creationist
No, it's
perspective. We
not.
would expect that God started with everything, and
Oh,
then
she's
things died
using
out
Stephen
over
Jay
time,
Gould. Now it makes
Yeah.
sense.
due to
Now it
the
makes
fall
sense,
of man,
yeah.
which introduced
Now,
sin and
now
death
it makes
into
sense
the
why
world.
she says
So,
100 phyla, because Stephen Jay Gould essentially believed we had like many more phyla in the Cambrian, and only a few of them survived. That was Stephen Jay Gould's view of
In the
Cambrian
1980s.
explosion.
Yeah. Yeah, here we are,
Yeah.
almost 40 years after Wonderful Life was published, in which that view was espoused, and the paleontology is literally the exact opposite now. Like, you can, if you look at the consensus in paleontology, it is that you had a few stem groups, and then they flowered outwards into all these extant groups that just got larger with time, right? That's that Stephen Jay Gould's idea was wrong.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's also like even like of course the Gould was well also pretty good as a scientist overall. This is like one of his ideas that was pretty wrong in my opinion as well. Yeah, because like again, he imagined that, for example, take the group arthropods. Like his view was back in the Cambrian, you had much wider disparity, but only a fraction of that morphological disparity survived to this day without further diversification. But of course, if you look at the insects, even the insects in themselves, they experience a much more broadening of the disparity later on. So it's not just again, it's not an upside down Christmas tree. It's not an upside down Christmas tree at all.
Or well, she would think that it was a Christmas tree, and really it is an upside down Christmas tree. Yeah. Okay, we can keep going.
Could genetic entropy?
I was just going
explain that too.
I wanted to make
No,
sure. All right,
it
there's
sure
two
couldn't,
things we have to talk about.
because it's fake.
Definitely touch on Pamela. Do you have a hard out or anything, or you have some time to hang?
I have some time to hang.
Okay, so we got to talk genetic entropy. We have to. I want to really
Unfortunate.
talk about carbon dating, because that's one thing that they're always throwing around. A couple of people in the comments are asking. Kennedy Hall is lame too, though. So Kennedy, you should have watched this whole show, man.
So that's it. That's all she has to say about
Kennedy is a big part of the reason I'm even tackling some of these things, because a lot of the conversations him and I have been having.
I just want to point out. Hold on. Okay, pause 1 second. It's just a general gripe of mine. For as much as creationists crap on the fossil record, they as a group know virtually nothing about paleontology. Like, I can never get them to talk about paleontology. They never want to do it. They only ever want to talk about like genetic entropy, for instance. Wonder why that is. It's almost like they don't know anything about it because it doesn't support them. Crazy. So they just don't look into it. Well,
or they do know about it and know that it doesn't support them. That's also.
That could be the case. Yeah.
I think evolution.
Okay, pause again. Like I think I also have like a different example to showcase why the taxonomic terms don't make much sense in the fossil record. For example, as you mentioned, like dinosaurs were considered an order, and birds again a class. Also, crocodilia is also an order. But then there was a different order named in the Triassic, which is called Thecodonts. Do you know what Thecodonts is? Yeah, it's basically the early ancestors or a paraphyletic group which contains some relatives to the early crocodile lineage and also some relatives closer to the bird and dinosaur relatives. So it's like all contained within this one order, the Thecodonts. Because back then those relatives of birds and crocodiles were like basically the same. They look pretty similar. Let's put them in the same order. But now we know some of them are closer to birds and some of them are closer to crocodiles. Yeah, even though they looked very similar in the Triassic. That's and that's also one good example of why the concepts of order and class and break down at the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Sai. He says I do not want to hear anything about genetic entropy. I'm sorry, it's not up to us. We're gonna have to sit through it together.
Between modern Catholics and traditional Catholics, where there has to be a conversation had where I feel like too many modern Catholics are just easily falling for the evolutionary thing, and there's a lot of implications that come with evolution. It's meant to make you feel insignificant. A lot of it has to do with it is simply creation.
Then why are most
every
Catholics
culture, every human culture that has ever existed in the history of man has always wanted to know where they came from. So when you see these temples throughout the world, these are all these different cultures trying to understand where they come from. And modern man is no different. And in order to get rid of the Christian Genesis story, they had to come up with a new one in order to replace the religion of Christianity.
Who's they, Anthony? Tell us who they are.
And the new one turns man into a beast and God into a monster.
The early the early scientists who figure out the deep time of the fossil record and also even evolution itself, they were all Christian.
They sure were. James Hutton, Charles Lyell,
even Darwin was a
Nicholas
Christian.
Steno. Yeah, literally everyone who was foundational in geology that figured out the Earth is millions of years old. Every single one of them Christian. All of them.
Can I also point out that she just said they turn man into beast and God into a monster? So, have you read the Bible where God apparently says men are but beasts? It's in there.
It's in Ecclesiastes, right?
Yes. Yeah, Ecclesiastes. Yeah, I forgot the verse. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, someone might have beaten you to that.
Hold on. Can I find? Is this it? Is it Ecclesiastes 3:19? Oh, surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is, wow, how meaningless. Oh, okay. Wow, these are interesting. Different translations here. Oh, King James, for that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. Even one thing befalleth them, as the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. Yeah. So, sorry.
Yep. Ecclesiastes 3:18. That was it.
Oh, Savage Cobra, the Acker invertebrate for $1.99. Evolution isn't narcissistic enough. Yeah. This is not so much of a Catholic. The popes have acknowledged evolution for quite some time. Yeah, exactly. That's been the Pope's stance for decades now. This idea that, and I hate it when any creationists do that, when they say, "Oh, you can't accept evolution and be a Christian." Bullcrap. Millions of Christians do it every single day and have absolutely no problem with evolution. It's just bogus.
Even within Christianity, you are outnumbered.
Yes.
They're
the minority.
Of course, they will. Yeah, of course, they will probably say that the Catholics are not true Christians.
They are Catholics.
Will say
they are Catholics.
Oh, sorry. Yes. in this case, yeah, that will work. Yeah.
We won't have any of that Protestant propaganda here. These are good Catholics.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was under the I was mistaken about that.
All right, we can keep going.
So genetic entropy. What actually is genetic entropy? Because I remember talking.
That's a good question. Let's ask John
Sanford.
I almost forgot. I never got a reply from Anthony because I asked him about why the Virgin Mary has a pig snout. Remember from last week? No response.
Actually, I totally forgot. Let me see if I wonder if he's blocked me.
Well, so if he has, tough luck because Elon Musk just booted the block button.
No, I don't think he can. I think he has to.
He has already.
Well, he can't do that on the App Store because the App Store requires that there be a block button. So Twitter would get kicked off.
I still have a block button. Sally, the Ouroboros, she's in the UK.
Yeah, I still have a block button.
she no longer has a block button. He checked.
It might be a thing based on where you are also. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, anyway.
If I remember correctly, it would suggest that it means that evolution actually could never work because of genetic entropy, right? I forgot how he explained that.
Right, of course. Sure,
I touched on one of the tenets of it a little bit earlier when I was talking about there's just no room in the genome for the kind of mutations that you would need to go from one species to another because you have all that regulatory information. So which is sort of like having all the lesson plans for a chemistry class. You got to have the equipment, but you got to have the plans too. You got to know when everything's going to be deployed. And the same is true in your body. So you have all this regulatory information in your genome. So if all or most of your genetic information is useful, if you have a change in that genetic information, that change is de facto going to be bad for you. It might not be so bad for you that you die, but it might be just a little bit bad for you, sort of like losing a few pennies on a transaction, right? So basically the concept of genetic entropy, which was developed by Dr. John Sanford, who also invented the gene gun because he was genetically modifying plants back almost
pause for a
before
moment.
it was cool.
He didn't invent the gene gun. He was part of the team that invented the gene gun. He does not get all the credit. His team collectively gets the credit. Let's not twist it. Sorry, but I hear that claim a lot, and it's not true. He alone did not invent it.
Can I just
that's what they say about like what's his name, Demadian, the creationists like saying, oh, he was the creationist who invented MRI, but the evolutionist didn't want that. No, he didn't. He worked on the same sort of stuff that other people were already also working on. So no, he didn't come up with MRIs by himself. Sorry.
I'm just if he developed genetic entropy, so it didn't exist before he developed it. Curious.
I think she just means he came up with the idea, you know.
Well, he said he developed it, which I think is hilarious.
That's true. I mean, you have to develop any idea, you know. That's just true in general. I don't fault her for saying that. But
okay.
The problem is there are no, and Sanford has admitted this at this point, there are no natural populations that are exhibiting genetic entropy. He's not aware of literally any. So that's kind of a problem, right? If you have this idea about how populations should evolve over time, and yet you can't find a single population that is experiencing genetic entropy, that's kind of seems a little weird, don't you think? Oh well.
He looked at population genetics over a lot of time as that field had developed, and he just basically said, look, you know, what we see over time and what he saw experimentally in the laboratory was that as we increase mutations, we decrease fitness. So the more mutations that you accumulate, the less fit that you get. And you can think about this if you use an analogy, right? So if your genome, you can think of as an instruction manual, because it's hard to for people to sort of visualize 3.5 billion base pairs. What does that even mean? You know, but it's all the instructions.
Here, so that it depends. So if you increase mutation rate, that decreases fitness. That depends. For instance, if I remember correctly, Nestle, correct me if I'm wrong. In the Richard Lenski experiment, the bacteria had like a mutator gene, wasn't it? So they like increased their mutation rate, and that was prior to them.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was prior to them developing the CIT plus mutations. So like, it's not necessarily the case that if you increase your mutation rate, you are necessarily going to have a decrease in fitness. That could be true, but it's not necessarily true. And what Sanford's idea drew on was he basically lied about Moto Kimura's work. He omitted the assumptions that Kimura had to make to try to make his data realistic, because what Kimura was modeling was just neutral and deleterious mutations. Kimura said explicitly in the paper, hey, I have to omit beneficial mutations because if I drop them in at the same rate that we have neutral and deleterious mutations, they would overwhelmingly overpower those types of mutations. So he inferred that beneficial mutations have to be relatively rare, because otherwise they would just completely mask the neutral and deleterious mutations. Again, Dan Stern Cardinal has done a whole bunch of videos on that. We did a video on it way back.
I am checking now like the landscape papers, and I see like one figure which it's to me the figure says that the mutator phenotype evolved within the group of CIT plus bacteria.
Okay, so it was the other way around. So they evolved the CIT plus, and then they got the mutator. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the point still remains that like it's not decreasing their fitness, like as far as I'm aware, because as the more recent paper showed that he's only had like like increased. They've only had like constantly increasing fitness gains, right? Wasn't that one?
It's the original assumption was that the fitness increase would reach an asymptote,
right?
Okay. So basically, but now it seems to me to be more like a power curve. Like it keeps on increasing. Like not like every increase is incrementally less. But there's no definite end, no definite end to it, basically, to the incremental increases in fitness. Yeah, it's yeah. So I don't know what's like as you mentioned, like no, every single population experienced an indefinite increase in fitness. There is no some point where we see we finally see genetic entropy happening.
Right. Yeah, the exact opposite.
When do we? we don't. And of course, you have to ask, like, again, you have to ask him, if you have the opportunity, just ask him, when do we expect to see genetic entropy in these types of experiments? Like, for how long do we need to culture bacteria or to culture viruses to see this happening? Like, how long do you have to wait? There's no prediction about that. On purpose, in my opinion.
Oh,
otherwise,
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, yeah, we can keep going.
That it takes to build you. Now, if I pick a random page and I add a random mistake on that page, it might not make a huge big difference to the instruction manual. But I have to copy the instruction manual from my parents, who had to copy it from their parents, who had to copy it from their parents, who had to copy it from their parents. So every time a copy is made, about 100 mistakes get introduced. So my parents made 100 mistakes.
That's only by the time you're a zygote.
It's like way more than that. Mistakes. My children would add 100 mistakes to my 100 mistakes and my parents' 100 mistakes. And do you see how this like builds over time?
Yeah. So again, pause for a moment.
You might have a mutation.
So like again, most of the mutations are what we would call neutral. They're effectively neutral. Like their effect is so small, whether it's positive or negative. It's so small that it essentially doesn't really matter at all. But also, in that instance, so one of the things that's like really important for paternity tests are like your the like hypervariable regions of your genome. So it's like little regions that get duplicated every generation. And so like yours is really similar to your parents, just similar to their parents, but yours is going to be very different from anybody else's. And so that's why like, that's how we do paternity tests. We look at those, or the geneticists like look at those regions to see are yours similar to your parents and so on. Like that's not doing you any harm, right? Those little duplication sequences are not that's not harming you at all.
It's like STRs, like short tandem repeats. And they vary in sizes. It's because like the process of like crossing over during meiosis and such, right? It's like in repetitive regions, the crossing over event can like cause things to be duplicated and or shortened in correspondingly in the other chromosome. And it is more vulnerable in repetitive regions, because in repetitive regions then the crossing over cannot distinguish between the point earlier and the point later, and that's why you have these repeats happening constantly in these repetitive regions. It's just a way like, at what point do you need to cross over at what point, and that causes these duplications or reductions.
and that's not very damaging in the short term. But when you combine it with other mutations that are not very damaging in the short term, you get mutations that are very damaging in the long term.
You get
like how you end up eventually with the new American
not
Bible.
damaging mutations.
That's funny. Well, okay. So what I'm getting.
Brian Stevens in the chat also says that the molds of Chernobyl are another case of what's going on here. Yeah, like have you heard about those, Jackson? The like the fungi in the
the
Chernobyl...
radiotrophic fungi.
Yes, they apparently grow. They apparently grow faster in the presence of radiation.
Yeah, I have heard about. I haven't really read too much about those, but I have heard about them. Yeah, no, that's but no, don't you know Pamela Acker said like mutations are all bad, so that can't be true. Yeah.
From you is okay. So what would seem to contradict this is that life expectancy seems to be going up, but in reality, that's just because medical technology has gotten better. Because it seems like what you're saying, it might even give a little bit of an explanation for why people were able to live 900 years.
Well, actually, hold
on in the Old Testament, right?
So life expectancy has gone up, but the actual length of your life has stayed the same. Like humans aren't living now to be like 150 years old, right? In ancient times, even when you had like, if you had a life expectancy that was 30 years, that doesn't mean people only live to be 30 years old. It just means like, if you have someone who lives to be 60 and someone who dies when they're a baby, right? Your average is going to be 30, right?
Yeah.
So like that's what that means. That doesn't mean that people only live to be 30 years old. And likewise, now that we have life expectancy that's like 84 or whatever it is here in the U.S., doesn't mean people are living to be 160. That just your average life expectancy.
It's also like, maybe if I can bring up a book I've also read a while ago, Against the Grain by what's his author again? James Scott, I believe. Let's see here. Just checking my Kindle from where I've read the book. Let's see here. Against
the Grain.
Against the Grain by James Scott, I believe.
By James C. Scott. Okay.
Yeah.
A Deep History of the Earliest States.
Yeah, it's basically like the normal narrative around the origins of agriculture is like, the hunter-gatherer lifestyle was such a struggle. We were just waiting until we finally could get to agriculture. But the true story is much more complicated, and it turns out there was like many factors that actually hindered our transition towards agriculture. It was like actually like many trade-offs we had to pay, and one of them is, in order to get agriculture, you need to have a very dense population, and that is just a hotbed for epidemics.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, and that's why you have these in ancient times very high death rates among children as well. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, would he argue that like you were more likely to have the transition to agriculture in like hunter-gatherer societies that had like larger populations, for instance?
Oh, I think his main argument is actually like it wasn't like destiny. It was more like a historical contingency, like in Stephen Jay Gould's terms. Basically, there was no direction. And sometimes there were actually many times people just reverted back to hunter-gatherer because the society that started just collapsed for disease or for drought or whatever, or like political instability. It's pretty scary when you consider that, because societies are very unstable like that. It's pretty scary to quote this, but I think it's a very interesting book if you want to read it. Yeah.
At some point, I might. I have so many books on my shelf. I don't.
Or there's also an Audible version, so you can also listen to the audio book as well.
I know that I would not be able to pay attention if it's on Audible. But I enjoy reading books, but I like reading physical copy books. But I have so many books on my shelf. I'm trying right now to I haven't bought a book in a little bit. I'm trying to really go through my books that I have on the shelf. The last book I bought was 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed, and I also bought the sequel to it. I haven't read the sequel yet, but 1177 BC was very good. Highly recommend.
Yeah. And there's also one thing that James Scott draws attention to is like the nature of state building was very coercive. Like again, what characterizes a state, and especially in the early days, was the state figures, like the people on top. They again, the first use of a writing system was to keep tabs on the subjects and slaves and such. So that was the first main use of writing systems, basically, to keep tabs on our subjects, mainly slaves and servants. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it wasn't so the origins of agricultures and states is not all rosy and clouds and such. Yeah. Yeah.
I may have to read at some point. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we can keep going.
You hear Noah lived 900 years, things like that. So
it's
almost like the longer time goes on, human beings are actually receding these certain qualities about their genes that would give them longevity, even, right?
Because
so
Noah
you have
didn't
a certain
exist.
inflation of life expectancy from now versus like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, but you have to sort of understand what's going on in human history at the time, right? We have almost zero infant mortality now, although we have the highest rate of infant mortality among developed countries, so
gee, I wonder why that is
about that one.
We do in America, huh?
Yeah, we have one of the highest rates of infant mortality and maternal mortality, I think.
Wow, that's crazy.
But it has absolutely nothing to do with things that we stick into children the day that they're born.
Yeah, I was gonna say this sounds like a conversation Robert RFK Jr. might be.
Hold on. Is she blaming vaccines for?
She's blaming vaccines and not the fact that that poor people tend to receive worse health care. So okay.
Also, the infant mortality happens before they get the vaccine.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm pretty sure it's correct. Like the infant mortality happens before
mortality.
They get vaccinated.
U.S. Infant mortality. Cause of infant mortality. Let's see. Birth defects by state. Oh boy. Mississippi is the worst, followed closely behind by my own state. Cool. We love that. Basically, the Bible Belt is the worst place to have a baby. Shock. Let me see. Infant mortality, rates by race and
funny enough, also the place where women get the least health care.
Yeah, crazy. Non-Hispanic Black have the highest. Non-Hispanic American Indian is next, followed by non-Hispanic Native Hawaiian, so Pacific Islander, then Hispanic, then non-Hispanic whites. That's crazy. Let's see. Does it tell why? Does it say why? That's okay. Let's try it. Birth defects. So birth defects, preterm birth and low birth weight, sudden infant death syndrome, unintentional injuries, maternal pregnancy complications. Do we have a particular reason? Like, what's the main reason? I'm curious. What is the main reason? What causes infant mortality? This paper from 2021. So let's see. There are many causes. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. It just kind of says broadly. Those are the same things. So congenital anomalies. Okay, so not vaccines is what you're saying. So birth defects. Structural and functional anomalies present at birth that can cause physical disability, intellectual and developmental disorders, and other health problems. So what you're telling me is not vaccines. That's crazy, dog. I would never have thought.
I also see like most of the neonatal deaths occur within the first week, and the first vaccine is delivered like a few months after birth. So the timeline also doesn't add
Not a
up.
vaccine. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, Savage the
unless
vertebrate.
Oh, so go ahead.
For $1.99 says, what phylum of worm lives in her brain? All of them is the answer. Now, what were you saying, Nestle?
Yeah, no worries. Unless vaccines are so dangerous, they are time travelers. So that could explain. That could explain the early latency of vaccines.
In the 1980s, congenital anomalies, SIDS, preterm birth, low birth weight, and pregnancy complications were among the top 5 causes of death, as they are now. At that time, respiratory distress syndrome instead of accidents was also on the top 5. Causes of infant mortality worldwide. So globally, the top 5 causes of infant death in 2010 were neonatal encephalopathy, or problems with brain function after birth. Neonatal encephalopathy usually results from birth trauma or a lack of oxygen to the baby during birth. Infections, especially blood infections, complications of preterm birth, lower respiratory infections such as flu and pneumonia, and diarrheal diseases. So this ranking is an average for all infant mortality from birth to age 1. Does not reflect the fact that the major causes of death in older infants are different from those in younger infants. For example, congenital anomalies are top cause of death worldwide in just days after birth, but not among older infants. In contrast, malaria is a top cause of death around the world in infants older than 1 month of age, but not in younger infants. So what I'm hearing is not vaccines.
I do have a question though, Jackson. What's the leading cause of death among children or minors?
Leading cause of death for children? Are you actually asking, or do you know the answer?
No, I'm actually asking. In the U.S., can you?
Leading cause of death, children, U.S. Oh, it's guns.
Funny how they never talk about that. So we should just ban vaccines. But yeah, the leading cause of death. Let's not touch that.
Okay, wait. Hold on. Let me get a little bit more nuanced. Here. The claim. This is from where is this from? This is from 2023 from Snopes. I trust Snopes. The claim that guns were the leading cause of death for U.S. children in 2021 is only true if the selected range is 1 to 19. So it's true that guns only kill children if you only include children from ages 1 to 19. Okay.
Yeah. That's kind
of.
Sorry, I was I don't know what happened, but I left for a moment. So I
you dropped out.
Like, who said?
Peter asked, "What is the leading cause of death for children in the U.S.?" And Snopes says that the claim that guns are the leading cause is only true if the selected age range is 1 to 19. Which, if you only include children, then guns are...
maybe they say that the range is too large. Maybe like if you decrease, yeah.
It does say, similarly, capping the age range at 17 instead of 18 or 19 alters the result, as children aged 17 under have a greater risk of dying of vehicle-related injuries. So if you say it's 1 to 17, it's vehicle-related, but if you increase it to 18 or 19, then it's guns. Fascinating. That's interesting. I mean, not surprising in any way, shape, or form, but that's interesting. I thought that was very funny. That it just
curious. Like, what is the age you are legally allowed to have a gun in the U.S.? The age,
I believe 21. Is it 21 or is it 18? Hold on. How old do you have to be to buy a gun? How old to buy gun? Is it 18 or is it 21? You have to be 21. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, so it doesn't explain the jump basically. So there is maybe a bit of an increase at after 17 that explains why when you include 18, 19-year-olds. That could explain why the death rate is the most common cause.
How many people
from
die from vaccines per year?
So Triceratops, Psalms Imaginary Chapter 2. There's ban cars. Guess what we're doing in the Netherlands, at least in city centers? That's like, can you enlighten us? What's happening in the Netherlands?
Mm-hmm.
What is banned in?
We aren't banning cars. We are just saying that cars in cities are guests. They aren't privileged. That's basically it.
No,
you're still allowed to own a gun. You're still allowed to own a car. Sorry, you're still allowed to own a car. You just aren't allowed to drive it everywhere you want to.
Yes.
Some places are reserved for pedestrians.
In the larger cities, you cannot drive a car in the center of town because they're banned there, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's like a single paper from 1994 that's like adverse events associated with childhood vaccines, evidence bearing on causality. Blah blah blah. Regarding
death rate from vaccines doesn't have statistics because it's so rare for someone to die from an allergic reaction. Like even if you have an allergic reaction, there are usually people.
Here you go. Actually, here you go.
Doctors nearby. Yeah.
Here. So to answer the question, can any deaths be attributed to the use of the vaccines discussed in this review? The committee categorized reports of death following immunization into 7 categories. So deaths for which the available data were insufficient to allow a judgment of cause, deaths associated with the vaccine administration, but attributable to improper handling, contamination, production error, or error of medical care. Deaths temporally associated with vaccine administration, but clearly caused by something other than the vaccine. Deaths classified as sudden infant death syndrome. Deaths that are a consequence of vaccine strain viral infection. Deaths that are a consequence of an adverse event that itself is causally related to a vaccine reviewed in this report, and deaths temporarily associated with vaccine administration, and the cause of death is listed otherwise. So that are what is this? Measles and mumps vaccines. It is plausible that administration there very few results of that, or very few alleged reports of that. I'm sorry. If the evidence favors the acceptance of or establishes a causal relation between a vaccine and an adverse event, and that adverse event can be fatal, then the committee's judgment, the evidence favors the acceptance of a causal relationship between the vaccine death from that adverse event. The case fatality rate for adverse events associated with vaccines should not be different from that associated with for adverse events associated with other causes. For example, anaphylaxis caused by a vaccine should be no more or less likely to result in death than anaphylaxis precipitated by any other antigen. True. It is plausible, however, that some adverse events are caused by attenuated viral vaccine. It might be milder than the same adverse event caused by the wild-type virus.
It makes sense because, like in the wild-type virus, there's a lot more of the stuff that causes the reaction, of course.
Yeah, basically they're having a pretty difficult time identifying people who actually died. So this is a paper on VIRS. They're actually looking through VIRS reports to identify deaths caused by vaccines or allegedly.
It's finding a needle in a haystack with questions like that, and people are just insane about, especially if of course, like. Everything carries risk, but the risk of vaccines is so minimal, especially when you compare it to the actual disease. So people just think differently about the two. Yeah,
my bad. Sorry,
no worries.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries.
I was just going to say, all of the 90 cases of SIDS reported to VIRS during this 15-month period occurred within 28 days of vaccination, and 78 occurred within 7 days of vaccination. There have been no changes in the incidence of SIDS over recent years. Each year, on the order of 5,000 deaths in the United States are classified as SIDS. Okay.
What are SIDS?
Sudden infant death
SID?
syndrome.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's saying that like, even though it was like these are, like occurred within a month of each other, there's no increase. There has been no increase in SIDS. So like, there's clearly no causal connection. I'm sorry, I was just looking through.
So Jackson, basically, it's just scare tactics.
Can't really find it. Yeah, basically it's just scare tactics. Yeah.
Okay, let me jump on that because really that was the segue I was looking for. Talking about scare tactics, we have covered 10 whole minutes. So if we keep up this rate, it's only slightly more than 5 shows to come on this video alone.
I'm sorry, it's just so bad. It's so bad.
I just wanted to point that out.
I was curious because I really hate this claim. I really hate anti-vaxxers. I really do. And so I was, if I get a chance to, you know what, let's bring Doc on sometime and talk about anti-vaxxers. That's what we should do.
That I would be all for that.
That'd be fun.
It's been so long since I've spoken to Doc Savage.
Okay,
I'd love to have an excuse
of death from measles vaccine strain infections would seem to be extraordinarily low. Yeah. And this is from a paper on specifically on deaths associated with childhood vaccines. Extraordinarily low. So
yeah, it's there's barely statistics for that because like it's again there are so few cases that it's impossible to even have something there. Like it's
there is no direct evidence for a causal relation between the hepatitis B vaccine and fatal anaphylaxis. The risk would appear to be extraordinarily low. Let's see. No relative risk
and of course
can be calculated for the vaccine for which one is this? For the polio vaccine. No relative risk can be calculated.
No, and of course the anti-vaxxers will be like, oh, so you're telling me there's a chance.
Telling me there's a chance.
The dumb and dumber meme.
I'm sorry. We can move on. All right, we can keep going.
Because that even look, as wacky as he is on certain topics, a lot of the things he's talked about with the medical issues have really, and everybody in the comments, Pamela, has been saying you were unbelievably helpful during the pandemic. So I don't know if you're able to see, but everybody in the comments is like, Pamela helped me so much during the pandemic. So I want to make sure.
God. I every time I meet somebody who says that, you know, I chose not to compromise because of something that you said. It makes everything that
the COVID vaccine doesn't have aborted fetal cells in it. Everybody, this is not an issue.
Okay, so now with radiocarbon dating, right? So
were we done with genetic?
Oh no! If you have more, please keep going. I cut you off. I was hoping.
No.
Sometimes.
Move on.
No, you're good. So but basically, you know, the lifespan inflation from a couple hundred years ago has a lot to do with sanitation. It has a lot to do with lack of infant mortality. It has a lot to do with improved medical care for geriatrics. It has a lot to do with the fact that we just don't work as hard. We don't live as hard lives anymore. We're not working 14-hour days in the mines. You know, so you don't have as many people dying from accidents. You don't have as many people dying from being weakened from malnutrition or their bodies just wearing out, right? So that doesn't really mean that we're living longer, healthier lives. And if you look at people, the amount of chronic disease that is present in our population now is unreal. It's off the charts. You know, so that I think too is evidence of
I wonder what used to happen to people. That's right. They just died before they were old enough to develop chronic diseases.
Yeah, this is also one thing that they also overlook. Like, diagnosis doesn't mean it wasn't there. Like just because we didn't diagnose chronic diseases back in the day doesn't mean they were absent.
No, necessarily nobody had diabetes, obviously.
Yeah. And in that case, it has increased, like because of the sugar industry, of course.
Well, I mean, but you're right. Like the idea that nobody had it's type 1 diabetes, right? Which is the genetic one. The idea that nobody had type 1 diabetes before, the last century or so. The idea that nobody had, like any form of issues of maladies, and just like, oh yeah, people they just survived and they were happy and healthy and everything. Like, no, they weren't. This is just just factually untrue. People, the average lifespan was shorter because more people died. There were fewer people on Earth because if you got a cut, that was it. It was just over for you. You got an infection, you got gangrene, it's over. Game over. So yeah, of course the incidence of like these maladies is going to increase as we have more people on Earth. So that is how that works. Yeah.
Actually genetically decaying over time. And I'm going to make another politically incorrect statement here, because obviously that's an acceptable thing to do on this channel.
That's our favorite.
But
please go ahead.
We rapidly accelerated genetic entropy in the human race when we introduced birth control into the population. Because when a woman chooses
What? What?
Oh, I didn't catch it. Like, what did she say about birth control? She said
genetic entropy is increased by female birth control.
It rapidly increased when they introduced birth control.
For my female audience, think about all the genetic things that an IUD does. Oh my god!
I have this.
It's a contradiction in itself.
Jackson, I have a suggestion for the title for this video. I have a suggestion.
What?
I have a suggestion for the title of this video. Pamela Acker. Condoms cause genetic entropy.
That is actually pretty funny.
I might change the title
to that. Yeah. If you if you don't have children, how does that go?
Or maybe I could change like Pamela Acker Part 4: Condoms cause genetic entropy. Do you think I should do that? I think I'm gonna do that. Like, we'll just have a fun quote for her like every time.
That title is clickbait. That might get you views.
I'm changing it right now. Hold on. Pamela Acker Part 4: Condoms cause genetic entropy. There we go. Okay. Got it. Saved.
Thank you.
No, thank you. That's a good idea. I like that. It was either that or like the.
Well, specifically, she specifically said female contraceptives, like specifically female contraceptives. So not
okay. So
condoms.
IUDs cause genetic entropy.
Yeah. But I suspect she's referring to the pill, and so I think she thinks the pill is toxic or like genetically toxic to the unborn for some reason. Like I'm just guessing. I mean,
you're probably right. All right, let's see what she says.
Yeah, let's not forget that a lot of women use that pill for other reasons than contraception.
Oh, also, Savage Cobra, the ED Acker invertebrate for $1.99. How is she this stupid? Very carefully.
She works hard at it.
She did say female birth control. You're right. I'll okay.
Few more minutes.
Okay, yeah. I'll. Okay, all right. Let's keep going.
Is her mate while she's taking birth control? She is going to choose a mate who is too genetically similar to herself. And if she chooses a mate who is too genetically similar to herself, then their children are not going to be as healthy. And this is particularly in regard to the immune system. So what a woman.
What?
So they're pheromones that humans give off that actually help in mate selection. And what a woman is picking up on is actually a man's MHC class 2 molecule, which is a molecule that's present on your immune cells. And if she's not on birth control, she's going to be attracted to a man whose MHC2 is very different from hers. And if she is on birth control, she's going to be attracted to a man whose MHC is very similar to hers.
Oh, that's even crazier than I was thinking about.
Jordan Peterson just had a woman on. And
I have to. We have to know about this. This is insane. I've literally never heard this before. MHC.
Mate select
mate
women on
selection?
birth control. Yeah,
Let's
have
see.
different mate selection.
Mate
apparently.
selection, contraception.
So
Okay,
I
hold
think
on. There's a paper from.
I think you need to change the title. I think you need to change the title into "Women on Birth Control Want Incest."
Okay, so here's a paper from 2010 that say, does the contraceptive pill alter mate choice in humans? Female and male mate choice preferences in humans both vary. Female and male mate choice preferences in humans both vary according to the menstrual cycle. Women prefer more masculine, symmetrical, and genetically unrelated men during ovulation compared with other phases of their cycle, and recent evidence suggests that men prefer ovulating women to others. Such monthly shifts in mate preference have been suggested to bring evolutionary benefits in terms of reproductive success. New evidence is now emerging that taking the oral contraceptive pill might significantly affect both female and male mate choice by removing the mid-cycle change in preferences. Here we review support for such conclusions and speculate on the consequences of pill-induced choice of otherwise less preferred partners for relationship satisfaction, durability, and ultimately reproductive outcomes. I have never heard of this before. That's fascinating. I don't think, and I'm willing to bet.
Link me study? Can you
Yeah,
link me
sure.
the study?
I'm willing to bet that this. Here, I'll put it here in the live chat.
Mm-hmm.
That the mate choice is not overcoming like your relationship, like familial relationship between like yourself and your mate. I don't think it's leading to incest in any real sense. So let's see. There's emerging evidence that the use of the pill by women can disrupt the variation in mate preferences across their menstrual cycle, their attractiveness to men, their ability to compete with normally cycling women for access to mates. I've never heard of this before, so that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Also, I have alarm bells by the fact that the title of the title of this paper is in a question. Basically, it's phrased like a tabloid journal. Like, oh, does the contraceptive pill alter mate choice in humans?
Let's see. Major historical. Well, I'm looking at. There's evidence that many vertebrates, including humans, select mates based on signals of compatibility between their MHC alleles with a preference for mates with different alleles than their own, resulting in pairings that would tend to produce more heterozygous offspring. There are several proposed hypotheses that address how MHC-associated mating preferences could be adaptive and how an unusually large amount of allelic diversity has been maintained. Okay, well.
Tigart asks who the author is. He says it sounds familiar.
The authors for the contraceptive paper, that's Alexandra Alverne and Virpi Luma. I don't know either of these people. The Department of Animal and Plant Sciences. I mean, they seem legit. I don't know. I don't know anything about these guys or this work. So, in another study done by this particular person, 121 women and men were asked to rank the pleasantness of the odors of sweaty t-shirts. Upon smelling the shirts, it was found that men and women who were reminded of their own mate or ex-mate had dramatically fewer MHC alleles in common with the wearer than would be expected by chance. If the selection for shirts was not random and actually selected for MHC dissimilar alleles, this suggests that MHC genetic composition does influence mate choice. Furthermore, when the degree of similarity between the wearer and the smeller was statistically accounted for, there was no longer a significant influence of MHC on odor preference. There's no longer a significant influence? Huh. The results show that MHC similarity or dissimilarity certainly plays a role. Specifically, MHC disassortive mate choice and less similar MHC combinations are selected for. I'm a little confused then. Okay. It does, genetic composition does influence mate choice, but when the degree of dissimilarity between the wearer and the smeller was accounted for, there was no longer a significant influence of MHC on odor preference. Okay. I kind of want to hear the end of this. I kind of want to hear the end of her little spiel on, oh, it's been refuted. Oh, okay. I've never heard of this. So let me actually hold on. All right, this is the last thing I wanted. let me put it into Google Scholar. Here's a more recent paper.
Guard says it's been refuted, but I can't find that one now. I came across this while looking into evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, I'm also looking at like papers that cite this paper, and it's all about evolutionary psychology. Yeah, it's all over the place.
So here's a paper from 2019 that cites the. Let me find it. Let me see if I can find that paper. Alvern. Okay, so that's citation 60. Okay. Okay. Of course, women who do use oral contraceptives and women who do not use oral contraceptives are likely to differ in many ways other than their use of oral contraceptives, meaning that within subject studies are necessary to establish whether oral contraceptive use does alter women's mate preferences. The first of such studies reported that masculinity preferences weakened after women began using oral contraceptives. However, a subsequent larger study did not replicate this effect and found no evidence that oral contraceptive use altered other aspects of women's mate preferences. Furthermore, the latter study found no evidence that oral contraceptive users' mate preferences changed when they were on placebo pills. Okay. Okay, so Sai's right. It has been refuted. Okay. Okay. Well, actually, Sai, I'm glad you were here because I had never heard of this before.
Okay, you also link that paper in the chat?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah. This is from Trends in Cognitive Sciences. I'm putting it here in the chat.
It seems like you mentioned that they use a placebo as a control, basically. And that is a pretty strong experimental control. But because then you account for any like confounding variables it may have. Like, yeah.
Then it goes on to say, wait, where'd it go? Hold on. While studies described above investigated the effects of oral contraceptive use on women's mate preferences directly, other researchers has investigated where. Oh, that's not really related. Okay. Okay. I'd never heard of this, so that's interesting. Okay. So there is no evidence, so it has been refuted. So the first of such studies, that's 35. So that would be a reference to 35 is no compelling evidence that preferences for facial masculinity track changes in women's hormonal status. Okay. Let's search. So this was a 2019 paper. No, that can't be right. Hold on. This is a different paper. A later study. Is it that one? Okay, maybe it is 35. It says it's 35. I'm curious. Does it say? Furthermore, both within subjects and between subject comparisons show no evidence that oral contraceptive use decreased masculinity preferences. Well, that's masculinity, but that's not genetic. Not really what she was talking about. I don't know. I never really heard of this, but it seems like at the very least, the idea is okay. So
I thought sorry if I'm I know we are over time. I also found a meta-analysis of menstrual cycle effects on women's mate preference. And it says evolutionary psychology predicts women's mate preferences shift between fertile and non-fertile times and such. Our meta-analytic test involving 58 independent reports was largely non-supportive. The few significant preferences shifts appear to be research artifacts. The effects declined over time in published work were limited to studies that used broader, less precise definitions of fertile phase and were found only in published research. And this meta-analysis also cites the like what you first brought up, the one about
and you said its
pill,
conclusion
basically.
is no.
Yeah, it is no, basically. Yeah, a meta-analysis, yeah, says no. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I said, thanks, Sai, for pointing that out to us. I'd never heard of that one before. Actually, Peter, can we finish her statement on that, and then we'll call it quits for today? Because I just want to see what her final. So, okay. So to summarize, it is correct, or it seems correct, that like the major histocompatibility complex, that the genetic differences, that like there is a relationship between humans like selecting each other based on the MHC, but this is not related to contraceptive pills. That's what we're saying, right, Nestle?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Okay, so there is a relationship between humans selecting each other based on MHC, but this is not related to contraceptives. Okay, so we just want to put that out there. So basically what she's saying is incorrect. Okay. All right, Peter, you can roll it.
She's by no means a Christian, even, I don't think. But she was talking about how women on birth control will meet someone, fall in love with them, and then later on go off birth control, and she's repulsed by him.
Yep.
And it's just what birth control does to a woman is messes up her pheromones.
It flips the switch of the physical attractiveness
to
someone that they wouldn't normally be attracted to.
Yeah, it's crazy. And every young girl that goes to her first OB appointment is being pushed to take this stuff.
Oh, you have acne here.
Take
some birth control.
There you go. Yeah.
Your period's not regular? Oh, I'm sorry. No 14-year-old's period is regular.
Yeah.
Don't put her on birth control.
It's so crazy because my daughter had to go for her first appointment.
So you would just tell her sucks to suck, I guess?
The doctor tells my wife immediately, you have to leave the room so you can talk to your daughter.
Whoa.
And she talks to my daughter, and then my wife comes back in and she goes, well, she tells me that she tells you every single thing and she's not active in any of those areas. So she's not, I'm like, these psycho doctors just want to pump these kids full of things at 14, 15 years old. It's crazy.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was there anything else on genetic entropy?
Okay, let pause for a moment.
Yeah.
Pause. Okay, so I just want to point out, because of people like them, like this group, my state, my lovely state of Louisiana, as well as the rest of the Bible Belt, has the highest rates of repeat teen pregnancy in the United States. Yay, us. Because people like them call doctors psycho for saying, hey, maybe it's okay to be on birth control because you're a crazy kid. Kids do stupid stuff. Kids might have sex without a condom, for instance, even though, because again, our schools tell them, hey, you should just be abstinent. If you think about having sex, consider just don't, because that's ever stopped anyone before.
Yeah.
So anyways, so no, it's people like these three who are part of the reason that we have such high rates of repeat teen pregnancy in the southern states. So anyway, okay. That was, okay. So we got, like 5 more minutes in. So yay for us.
Doing great.
I'm so glad that we got not much further through the video. This video
also glad that we stopped before they were talking about Jordan Peterson as well.
I'm also glad for that. Yeah. He's also a Nimrod. This is like weaponized stupidity. This is weapons grade stupidity is what this is. It's kind of crazy. So probably won't have the fruit fly's tail out by next Thursday because I'll still be reading chapter 2 of The Rocks Were There, volume 2, and then we'll get to writing it and it will eventually be out. So anyways, well, thank you everybody for watching, and then we will see all of you next Thursday. So bye everybody.
Bye-bye.